On the 14th of February this year, before the ATSB report was finalised into the Mount Gambier accident, CASA introduced the Community Service Flight instrument that we are discussing today. The instrument set a standard for Angel Flight, but it was a standard that Angel Flight already met. It had minimum flight hours and a minimum timing command that were set in the instrument, but they were already requirements of Angel Flight, and in that respect, the instrument wasn't offensive. The offending parts of the instrument centred around three things: one, the exclusion of helicopters from being used for community service flights; a restriction on those who can fly on board Angel Flights, which make it unlawful for there to be an Angel Flight mentor on board the aircraft; and three, an increase in maintenance requirements for aircraft involved in flights. I'll deal with each of these issues one by one. In relation to helicopters, Ms Rebecca Sharkey and I met with CASA after we lodged a disallowance, of course, in the last parliament, and questioned why helicopters could not be used to conduct Angel Flights. CASA could not explain this decision, and on the 8th of April they introduced an amendment to the instrument re-permitting the use of helicopters. In respect of mentoring, interestingly, at the Senate inquiry that has now looked at the ATSB report into the Mount Gambier crash, CASA appeared and conceded that they did not really intend to prevent mentoring on board the aircraft, and that they would look to clarify the situation. Of course, pilots are always very conservative. They will look to the rules and they'll try and stick to them to the letter. Finally, maintenance. With the benefit of the ATSB report into the Mount Gambier crash, we now know that neither Angel Flight aircraft that crashed had anything to do or had any concerns in respect of maintenance. Maintenance played no part in relation to those crashes. Yet the instrument increases the maintenance regularity for aircraft participating in Angel Flights. I need to stop here and just advise the chamber of that Angel Flight philosophy, of the Angel Flight philosophy. Once again, it is Angel Flight pilots are CASA certified pilots. They are safe. The aircraft they fly in are CASA certified. They are safe. These are people who volunteer their time to help others in the community. Now, I actually have a pilot's licence. I can jump into— well, I probably can't. I haven't flown for a while. It would be unwise to fly with me, but theoretically I could jump into an aircraft with my colleague Senator Griff here, and we could fly to Kangaroo Island, do something on the weekend, enjoy some fishing, and I could fly back. Yet, for some reason, a certified pilot can't do the same thing with someone who simply needs a medical appointment in the city. Okay, so we have a problem here. You can have a highly qualified pilot in a plane, fly someone to a sporting event on the weekend, and that's okay. But the same pilot in the same aircraft may not be able to fly a person to a hospital, or to a medical centre for an appointment. And yet we find that there are additional requirements that are going to be placed on Angel Flight aircraft. And it won't be a small imposition. It's not like you take your aircraft and you just roll it down the road to the nearest garage and get it serviced. You actually have to find a licensed aircraft maintenance engineer, and they're getting rarer and rarer by the moment. And you might have to fly some considerable distance after you have booked in, and then you get your flight, your aircraft inspected. It's a significant event in the context of an aircraft pilot and/or an aircraft owner. It is not an insignificant burden. So it takes time and money to do that. Yet So CASA has now introduced an instrument that, from a maintenance perspective, does nothing in respect of safety in relation to Angel Flight, except it adds cost to it. Yet again we see CASA trying to kill off the general aviation sector. And the irony of all of this is that the Chamber passed the Civil Aviation Amendment Bill 2019 just a while back, which is a government bill that seeks to rein in CASA over regulation. It is listed to pass through the House of Representatives today. And the operative part of that bill says this: in developing and promulgating aviation safety standards, CASA must A. consider the economic and cost impact of individuals, businesses and the community of the standards, and B. take into account the differing risks associated with different industry sectors. Madam Deputy President, the government has signalled, and the Senate has signalled, that, and there is no doubt in the other place, they will command by legislation, probably by the end of today, that CASA recalibrate its approach to safety. Safety is of course important, but there will never be zero risk associated with flying. Yet we have a situation here where CASA is introducing a maintenance requirement that will cost money and is not necessary, and yet Mr Michael McCormack is adamant that it should go through. He introduced the bill into the other place, in here. He's had the bill introduced to address this very problem, and yet he's exacerbating it by allowing this instrument to go through. The Chamber must realise that we are dealing with an organisation, CASA, that would prefer to see no aircraft flying ever, because that's the way they'll get a zero safety case on their ledger. No flights equals no accidents. If CASA were in charge of road transport, none of you would be allowed to drive on the roads. Simple as that. An accident would occur and CASA would ban you. They'd regulate people out of business. And the further irony that we've got here is that by doing this, there will be less Angel Flight pilots inclined to fly and less aircraft available to do that, which will put these people who require medical attention back onto the roads, where it's more likely that there will be an accident. Just giving you the statistics for South Australia, in 2018 there were 80 fatalities on South Australian roads, 56 of those on rural roads, and indeed 34 fatal crashes in the Limestone Coast region between 2012 and 2016, which is of course near Mount Gambier, where this last Angel Flight crash occurred. Now, of course, since this instrument has been introduced, we've had an ATSB report come out. And sadly, that ATSB report directed its effort not just at the crash, and I concede what they did in respect of the crash was professional, and they did make useful findings as to what had happened. And by the way, they did not make any recommendations in respect of that crash, but they turned their attention to Angel Flight, this organisation that seeks to assist people in regional areas. And using statistics, and we all know about statistics, lies, damned lies, and statistics is the saying, they came to the conclusion that it was 7 times more likely that you'd have an accident on an Angel Flight than on a private flight. And they did that by excluding pre-positioning legs, the legs where the pilot goes from where they live to where the patient needs to be picked up, and after they've done the service of taking them to a medical appointment, from getting back from where the patient is to where they live. That data was excluded. They found that there was pressure on Angel Flight pilots, and you know what? They did that without talking to one single Angel Flight pilot. Not one single Angel Flight pilot was talked to. And do you think they asked the question, how many times has an Angel flight cancelled due to weather, because that would give an indication of how the organisation was faring in terms of making sure people weren't taking off in bad conditions. Do you think they asked? Do you think they found out about how many times one of those flights had been cancelled? No, they didn't. And in that respect, the report was incompetent. And the Senate committee, that chaired by Senator McDonald, who did a really good job throughout the process, very fair, very measured, extracting evidence. Basically, the committee, a government committee, government-dominated committee, made some findings and made some recommendations, and those recommendations included two things. The first was to deal with the issue of mentoring. And once again, I concede that CASA was happy to take that on board and indicated to the committee that they would consider that. Nonetheless, that's one of the recommendations from the committee. The second recommendation from the committee is that the additional maintenance requirements that have been placed on Angel Flight without any justification, should be removed. So we have a government-controlled committee, and once again, Senator McDonald did a really good job chairing that committee. I'm going to be very interested to see how she votes on this disallowance. And we also had Senator Brockman. I guess I can even up the score. He was very surgical in his questioning around the statistics associated with Angel Flight. Actually took on the doctor inside the ATSB responsible for those statistics and pulled out some glaring errors. And for that I thank Senator Brockman, and I'll be interested to see how he votes on this disallowance. Okay, Senator Sterle stood strongly on this as well. I note that the report that was handed down by the Senate RAC committee was unanimous. There were no dissenting reports, there were no additional comments. And once again, I congratulate the committee secretary, Senator McDonald, for getting a bipartisan report. That's often a difficult thing to do in this place. Madam Acting Deputy President, we have the general aviation community know that what is being done here is wrong. We have a Senate committee that has recommended changes. I've asked for those changes to be made by CASA. I've sat down with CASA and I've suggested to them, I said I will withdraw my disallowance if you simply accept the recommendations of the Senate committee. Recommendations grounded in evidence that we took from the ATSB, from Angel Flight and from CASA. But no, we still have an organisation in CASA that is intent, it's their modus operandi to shut down general aviation. And shame on all of the nationals in this place if they vote against this, and anyone who cares about regional communities and the people that live in these regional communities for just making it that little bit harder. Making it that little bit harder for people who live in those communities. They're already suffering from the fact that we're removing on a regular basis services from those communities. A lot of them are doing it tough in relation to farming, and now we're going to make it just that more difficult by removing some of the people, some of the very good people that volunteer their time to help, volunteer their aircraft, just so that CASA can continue in its attempt to destroy general aviation. The Parliament, I don't know whether the House has passed the bill yet. Once again, it's listed for today. The Parliament is commanding CASA re-adopt or recalibrate the way it thinks about aircraft regulation, aviation safety regulation. And yet they stand in opposition to this Parliament, passing regulations that are harmful, that are costly, that are unnecessary. And I urge the Senate today to disallow the instrument that has been put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.